Hi, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I had a whole program prepared for today. I was going to talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, where Xi Jinping met with Putin and Modi. And then I watched the parade. It just finished. So I decided to give you my observation of the parade, which is very interesting. So last minute change. Chris and I have been changing thumbnail slides and everything. So hopefully, if we still have time, I can still tell you about the SCO summit in Tianjin. But first things first, yeah, the parade just happened. And it's the first time since the Cold War that leaders from China, Russia, and North Korea got together. And here are some photos. Let me show you the photos. Yeah, here we go. So this is what Tiananmen Square looked like in the morning, in the early morning. And this is an aerial view, sorry. And so here they are walking up to the top of the Tiananmen Gate, and there they are. So what I want to tell you is Xi Jinping and his wife greeted all the foreign dignitaries at the foot of the Tiananmen Gate, and then they climb up the stairs and to reach the gate. And all Politburo members were in attendance. The standing committee members were in the front row. Other members were in the back, right? There were 24 of them, and 7, including Xi Jinping, with the standing committee. So they were in the front row with the foreign dignitaries, and then the regular Politburo members were in the back. Now, the party elders were also in attendance, and that's what I want to talk to you about. So here we have Wen Jiabao. So all the names that I told you about, the ones who are busy in action, who are actually running the show from behind, are spotted. So here we have Wen Jiabao and Li Ruihuan. Li Ruihuan is on the left. Wen Jiabao is in the center, and the one on the right is Jia Qingling. And then we have Wang Yang on the left, and then Zheng Qinghong on the right. And then we have, guess who? Wang Qishan in the center. And there's, I think it was Liu Yunshan on the left. Guess who do you spot in the corner? That's Zhang Youxia. Right? They placed Zhang Youxia in the front row together with the retired or the past and current Politburo Standing Committee members. And not in the back with the regular Politburo members, because technically Zhang Youxia is just a Politburo member. So he should be in the back row, but they put him in the front, although on the side, on the far end. So this obviously gave him a higher standing, right? So he's treated like a Politburo Standing Committee member, judging by where he is placed. And in the picture, they were all looking to their right. If you notice, yeah, that's where Xi Jinping and Putin and Kim Jong Un were. And people, if you watch the video, people were talking and smiling, but there was one person who was not smiling. That's Zhang Youxia. In the actual video, Zhang's eyes were fixed on Xi Jinping, with an interesting expression. I mean, if everyone turned their head to the right and looking at the center. So he must be looking at Xi Jinping, but his facial expression is very intense. His eyes were fixed on the few people in the center. And his facial expression is as if saying that I'm keeping an eye on you. So that's one thing that's interesting, right? The fact that Zhang Youxia was moving from the back seat to the front. And then also his facial expression is very interesting. You have to see the video to get it. I mean, this picture doesn't doesn't do its justice. Also interesting, state official media gave a long shot of Wang Yang as he walked in. And I noticed that, the man on the left. The camera followed him as he walked in. I didn't see that on any other party elders. He was the only retired party elder who was given a long, steady shot as he walked in. So this is very special. That subtle shot, I mean, I think it's subtle. I mean, it's subtle, but you could also say by CCTV standard, it's not subtle at all. It suggests that his standing in the party has been greatly elevated, and he's going to play a big role in the post-Xi Jinping era. Otherwise, you cannot explain, of all the party elders, some of them have higher rankings than him, like Wen Jiabao, right? He was the former premier. I mean, he has a higher standing, higher ranking or status than Wang Yang. But Wang Yang was given the longest shot, and the camera followed him. So that again, confirms all the speculations about Wang Yang and Hu Chunhua will be playing a special role in the post-Xi Jinping era. And as expected, Xi Jinping reviewed the troops. Where is he? There he is. He looked a little down. He seriously looked a little down. And then the parade marshal, which was always played by the commander of the Central Military Command, this time is now played by a lieutenant general who is the commander of the Air Force of the Central Theater. And his name is Han Shengyan. And this man has been with the Air Force throughout his entire military career. We know the commander of the Central Theater has been missing because the general has not been spotted at the August 1st military reception. So many people say that Zhang Youxia is actively playing the role of the commander of the Central Theater because it's the most important. It has the responsibility of protecting the capital city. So, okay, so now we solve the mystery. We know who the parade marshal is. And this parade reportedly cost CCP 36 billion Chinese yuan, which is about 5 billion US dollars. That's a lot of money. And this is Xi Jinping's 5th military parade and possibly his last one. CCP has held altogether 17 parades. The first 11 were during the first 11 years after they took power. So from 1949 to 1959, the CCP held 11 military parades, and then they stopped. And then Deng Xiaoping resumed it in 1984. So Deng Xiaoping, of the three CCP leaders before Xi Jinping, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, and Hu Jintao, they each staged one parade. But Xi Jinping, he's already held 4 before this one. And of the 4, 2 were in Tiananmen Square and 2 were at military bases. So including this one, he's held 3 military parades in Tiananmen Square and 5 in total. That significantly outnumber the parades his predecessors held, except Mao. Now let's also compare, let's talk about who showed up. So compare with the one 10 years ago in 2015. That was the first time Beijing staged a Victory Day parade. So back then, lineup included some surprising names, like Bosnia's rotating president or presidency chair was in attendance. Czech Republic's president came, Polish parliamentary speaker came, Egypt's president came, South Korea's president also came, and Thailand's deputy prime minister and defense minister was in attendance. In addition, 19 senior representatives from Western nations, Australia, France, Italy, the Netherlands, New Zealand, and even the United Kingdom were present on the viewing stands. Now, fast forward to 2025, and the guest list looks very different. Many of those 2015 faces are gone. Most notably, South Korea. As much the current South Korea's new president, Lee Jae-ming, who is notorious for being pro-Beijing, didn't come under pressure. He didn't come. He sent a representative, but 10 years ago, Park, I think her name was Park Geun-hye. Park, it's hard to say. Piao Jing-hui, that's how we say it in Chinese. I think in Korean is Park, President Park, yeah. She came, but 10 years later, now the pro-Beijing president, President Lee, didn't come. And then Egypt, so are Egypt, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia, and India. So these countries' heads of state did not come. But all of them had top leaders present a decade ago. Now, who are the leaders who came? Who are the leaders who weren't in attendance? Or which countries didn't send their leaders back then, 10 years ago, but did now? Well, they are Azerbaijan's president, Turkmenistan, the Maldives, Zimbabwe, and Congo. And also Venezuelan President Maduro came 10 years ago, and he's now in deep trouble, and he didn't show up. And Indonesian's president, who said that he wasn't going to go due to his domestic unrest, actually showed up last minute. He took the last flight out of his country and showed up. That's Indonesian president. Okay, now there's also a change in hierarchy. In 2015, Putin wasn't listed first on the guest list. And also, Kim Jong Un didn't come 10 years ago. But now Putin was listed as guest number 1 and Kim number 2. And they're front and center, the star allies that Xi Jinping can still count on 10 years later. So this contrast tells a bigger story, right? 10 years ago, Beijing could still lure a broad cross-section of leaders from Europe, Asia, Africa, and even America's allies in the Pacific, like South Korea. Today, Xi Jinping stands more isolated. The absences, notably from India, South Korea, Egypt, Central Asia, and much of Europe, signal just how far the CCP's global standing has slipped. So what remains are the regimes with fewer choices: Moscow, Pyongyang, Havana, Tehran, and a handful of leaders from Africa and South Asia. So I also want to talk about the VIP guests itinerary, because that's utterly interesting. So here's a screenshot of a VIP invitation. I don't know if you can see it, but here it is. Let me make this bigger. And this is for like overseas VIP guests, not dignitaries, but I suppose if you are a pro-CCP community leader or scientist or anyone who's pro-Beijing and who are willing to show up, they're going to invite you. But this is they put them in a hotel That's about 10 kilometers away from Tiananmen Square, called Xiyuan Fandian. And here's the itinerary. Okay, the wake-up call is 3 a.m. So you have to wake up at 3. And if you don't answer the wake-up call, they're going to send the housekeeping staff to knock on your door at 3:20. Breakfast is served from 3 to 4 in the morning. And then by 4 o'clock, guests must gather in the hotel lobby for security check. And that's 1 hour. 5 o'clock, they board the bus and depart for the parade. Now think about it. The parade doesn't start or didn't start until 9 o'clock, and they left their hotel at 5, 4 hours in advance. The hotel is only 10 kilometers or 6 miles away. And without traffic, it's like 10 minutes. Even with traffic, it's 20 minutes. But they need 4 hours. That just tells you how much security there was, right? And so that's invitation number 1. Here's the invitation. This is very interesting. This is an invitation sent to princelings. They are the children. They're inviting the children or descendants of the party elders. Okay, so this is an internal invitation, so it looks a little casual. Now, these people, they housed them in the hotel called Beijing Guest House or Grand Beijing Hotel, which is right on Chang'an Avenue, right in the heart of Tiananmen Square. It's like within walking distance to Tiananmen Square. And these people, they still have to get up at 5. Okay, they have to get up at 5. Breakfast is served 5 to 6. And security check begins at 6:30. And they have to board the bus at 6:50. Because these are insiders, because they are really the party elders' children or grandchildren, they're family members. So security check was only for 20 minutes, and they're going to hand out their badges and security clearance on the bus. So they arrive at their seat at 7:30. So think about it. The event starts at 9. These people have to get up at 5 and be seated at 7:30. All that extra time is for security. All right, so that's all I have for the parade. Just a quick update for you guys. Now let's talk about the before the parade. All eyes were on Tianjin. That's where Putin, Modi, and Xi Jinping met at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, right? And there was a short clip of the three of them laughing together, and that video went viral. And in the footage, Modi was seen holding Putin's hand as they walked towards Xi Jinping. And the three shared a frame, chatting and laughing, with Modi never let go of Putin's hand. And the translator began to translate Putin's words. And we could hear that he said, "We three friends," but the rest was drowned out in the noise, and we couldn't hear what was said. But then seconds later, they all burst into hearty laughter. So let me see, do I have the pictures? Oh, well, before that, let me talk about King Jong Un's arrival. So Kim, let me make this bigger. He arrived in his train. He was given he came with his daughter, teenage daughter, his successor, and he was given the highest precedence in terms of reception. There was high-level officials who went to the train station to greet him, and there you have the Politburo Standing Committee member Cai Qi, the Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and the mayor of Beijing, Ying Li. They all went to greet him. And this was the first time Kim visits China since 2019. So it's been 6 years. Yeah, so that's the grand reception at the train station. All right, so here we have some photos of the meeting in Tianjin. Okay, let's talk about what they wanted. So, of the three, Modi, Putin, and Xi Jinping, it was Modi who stole the spotlight. Indian media even splashed a photo of Modi lecturing his pupils. I don't have the picture here. So this was Modi's first trip to China in 7 years, and it came at a sensitive moment. Washington had just tightened the screws, and on August 27th, the US slapped a 50% tariff on Indian goods, accusing New Delhi of helping Moscow to buy Russian oil. And 2 days later, on August 29th, the Indian rupee plunged down almost 1% against the dollar, and its lowest point this year. So Modi was stunned, right? China, America's #1 rival, was paying a tariff of 55%, just 5% more than India. So Modi turned to China. But here's the paradox. Modi may need China now more than ever, yet he cannot afford to be seen leaning too close to Beijing. There are hard limits that guarantee India and China will never stand in the same camp. So first is the border dispute. Now, actually, most people assumed that the border dispute is the #1 issue between India and China. Actually, it is for China, but not so much for India, because the disputed land is currently in Indian hands. China may be the one pressing, but for now, it's India has control over the disputed land. So, yeah, so it's a minor issue. It's a minor concern for India. And at the summit, the two sides, Xi Jinping and Modi, agreed that they're going to set this border dispute aside for now. So that's issue #1. #2, China and India would never agree over two issues. That is, one is Dalai Lama and second is Taiwan. Because this difference is about values and ideology. India is the world's largest democracy, cannot align itself with the world's largest communist state on questions of human rights and sovereignty. So when it comes to the Dalai Lama issue and the Taiwan issue, India cannot align with Beijing. But Beijing would push India to align with itself over these two issues. So that would be a major contention point between the two countries, which they would never agree. Because if India turned its back on Dalai Lama and Taiwan, it would lose not only Washington, but also Europe as friends. And India cannot afford to lose Europe and North America. And the third issue is trade realities. Yes, China is India's largest trading partner, but the relationship is lopsided. India's trade deficit with China hit a record of $99 billion this year. By contrast, India enjoys its largest surplus with the United States at $41 billion, plus another maybe 10 to 20 billion surplus with the European Union. So India's strategic anchor is still the West. It cannot afford to lose its Western partners. It's just too costly. There's no way, right? And the Quad alliance is a deeper ties with the U.S. and Japan. And the New York Times had an article a few days ago saying that, this is according to the New York Times. I don't think the White House has confirmed, but the Times said that Trump is not going to the Quad summit in India. So that's not a good news for India. So in Tianjin, at the SCO summit, Modi spelled out his priorities clearly: reduce that deficit, rebalance trade, and expand cooperation in areas like counterterrorism and fair trade practices. But these expectations, I mean, regardless what the Chinese side agreed or what Xi Jinping agreed, I don't think the Indians should count on the CCP because they won't keep their promise, because they cannot. Because Modi's expectations clash with reality. China is dumping cheap goods worldwide to survive Trump's tariff war, including into India. And that's why India has a record high trade deficit with China. So how is India going to expect China reduce this deficit? And because of China's diminishing population and declining economy, they also shouldn't expect China to buy more Indian goods. What is China going to buy from India? So unlikely, I think unlikely, with China's population shrinking and its domestic market contracting, that the trade deficit between China and India will be reduced. But still, Beijing's state media still spawned Modi's presence as the dragon and the elephant dancing together. It was a carefully crafted image aimed squarely at Donald Trump. The anti-Trump outlets eagerly used it as proof that his foreign policy has failed, that India had been pushed into China and Russia's arms. But I think that narratives, the dragon and the elephant dancing together, is something that both China and India need at the moment. But I think Modi is a smart man. This is only his temporary gesture to Washington, but sooner or later he's going to come back to the negotiation table. But there's there is a video. I'm sorry, because the change of plan, I didn't have time. I mean, Chris already had that video. There was a video circulating on Chinese social media showing that when Xi Jinping and Modi met, Modi extended his hand. When Modi walked in, he raised his right hand to shake Xi Jinping's. Xi Jinping glanced and then quickly turned his head, shifting his body as if to guide Modi along. And then Modi dropped his hand. So outwardly, it looked like a host gesture. It looked like Xi Jinping was kind of just pointing Modi to in the other direction. But in truth, it was Xi Jinping dodging the handshake. It was very obvious. Modi was a little awkward because he extended his hand and then he dropped. So people are saying, why? Why did Xi Jinping do this? Why did Xi Jinping shun him in public? It's possibly because Modi had refused to attend Xi Jinping's big parade, the one that we just saw. Instead of staying in China or go to Beijing to join the parade, Modi went to Japan to negotiate high-speed rail with Japanese, not Chinese technology. India wants no dependency on Beijing. So Modi is very careful, with his balancing act. He extended a diplomatic gesture, but also restraint, right? India wants relief, but not dependence. For Beijing, Modi's visit was trumpeted as proof that China's isolation is ending or China has friends. But for Modi, it was about survival under US tariffs. Both leaders got what they needed in the moment. But whether this marks a true shift in India-China relations, I doubt it. I really do not think so. Now, there's another possible explanation as to why Xi Jinping refused to shake hands with Modi. People say that he just simply doesn't care. He knows his time is running out. He may be forced to step down in October at the fourth party plenum. So why is he interested in mending relations with India if he isn't going to be around to enjoy the benefits, right? So he may already be in a semi-retirement mode. And any work he does now is just going to help his successor, and he's certainly not interested in doing that. So yeah. Now let's talk about Putin. Okay, so on August 31st, Putin arrived in Tianjin. This wasn't just another state visit. It was a rare 4-day stay. It's long by Putin's own standards. His schedule was heavy. The SCO summit and then the parade. And then he brought how many people? He brought a big entourage. So Putin came with, let's see, he came with one of the largest delegation ever. 3 deputy prime ministers, over a dozen ministers, and executives from major state-owned firms. So that's unusual. Now the timing, right? The timing couldn't be more critical. The world is watching. Will he lean harder on Xi or consider Trump's offer of a ceasefire? That's what people are watching, right? Now, both Putin and Xi Jinping know Trump's strategy, break their alliance, but neither wants to give away. I think Putin, if you watch my program about, I did a program on why the Russia-Ukraine ceasefire is so difficult. If you watch that video, then you have a better understanding of this. Putin boasted before leaving Moscow that Russia-China trade had reached an unprecedented level. He said Russia is now one of China's main oil and gas suppliers, and Chinese cars flood the Russian market. But he wasn't exactly truthful. Behind the slogans lies a harsh reality. Chinese customs data shows trade slipping between the two countries. From January to July, bilateral trade fell 8.1% year over year. Russian oil exports to China dropped nearly 20%, and Chinese car sales into Russia collapsed by 46%. If you ask me why all of a sudden the Russians are not buying Chinese-made cars, I think it's due to poor quality. And then I think, they're just not reliable. So, but still, China remains Russia's biggest customer. It's expected to buy 78 billion in Russian goods this year, which is about 17% of all Russia's exports. But the trend is downward, and Putin knows it. And that's why he arrived with one of his largest delegation ever. And according to his aide, Yuri Ushakov, they are going to discuss the 3 natural gas deals with the Chinese and the Siberia 2 pipeline project, which China has shied away for a couple of years, I think it's either signed or very close to be signed. but his aide admitted that a 4-day trip for Putin is very unusual. That just shows you how important this trip is to Putin. Of course, Beijing rolled out the red carpet, desperate for the optics. State media declared Sino-Russian relations at their best period in history. But here's the reality: the two don't necessarily see eye to eye, because Xinhua, during the interview that the Xinhua news agency gave, it was before he left. I think it's on the eve of his arrival. On the eve of his arrival in China, Xinhua news agency did a lengthy interview of Putin. In this interview, Putin, of course, denounced Western sanctions as discriminatory, and vowed Beijing and Moscow would resist. But then, when the subject turned to history, Putin embarrassed Xi Jinping. Beijing has long claimed that the CCP was the main pillar, or in Chinese, 中流砥柱, was the main pillar of the anti-Japanese war, which is a total lie. The nationalist government, the Republic of China's military, was the main pillar of the war. But anyways, Putin, in his interview, credited Soviet Union's cooperation with Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist government. He even reminded the viewers of a fact that Beijing has worked so hard to erase. In 1945, the Republic of China was already one of the 4 founding members, or 5 founding members of the United Nations, with a permanent seat on the Security Council. So this is utterly embarrassing to Xi Jinping and the CCP, because the state-controlled propaganda machine has been trying so hard to argue that the Communist Party military was the one who fought the Japanese. It should be credited. But Putin's interview it told everyone that the CCP wasn't being truthful. So now the Chinese are asking, now voices inside China are growing louder. They say, how can a 74-year-old regime claim victory in a war that's 40 years ago? That's a valid question, right? Because the CCP is only 74, the PRC is only 74 years old. But the war, the victory was 80 years ago. So they say, how could you win the war when you weren't even around? So for Xi Jinping, yeah, Putin's interview his words were a slap in the face. I think the summit in Tianjin was just a political theater than substance, because Xi Jinping is not going to be around for very long. Any talks India or Russia held with him may become obsolete in a couple of months. But Putin gambles that Xi Jinping will survive the 4th plenum and will cling to power. And there were even speculations that Putin was in China to help Xi Jinping win this political fight. He's helping his best buddy stay in power in his best interest. But if Xi Jinping steps down in coming weeks, right? October is right around the corner. All the promises made to Putin or Modi become worthless. And if reformists take over, China will almost certainly readjust its foreign policy, pulling back support for Russia's war, and become pro-West and pro-United States. And that, many believe, is inevitable. It's only a matter of time. And judging by what we saw at the parade, the unusual seating plan of Zhang Youxia, and then the long shot of Wang Yang by the state media, it's telling me it's happening. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time. So Putin is grabbing what he can, while Xi Jinping still pretends to be in charge, but he will not. Okay, let's talk about something unusual at the summit, Xi Jinping's health. If you've seen the recent footage, it's hard to miss. So let me share with you the pictures. Okay, I have to make this bigger. This is, um, I asked Chris to compare Xi Jinping's picture with Putin between the 2 years. Did you notice something weird? Xi Jinping's face looked really dark this year, right? He looked like he has an awful tan. And here's his picture with Modi. His skin tone is darker than Modi. Could you imagine that? And here he is in the group picture. So these are all taken recently. Is there another one? Yeah, this is with his wife and Putin. And look how dark Xi Jinping is. Or here's another one in a group shot. I mean, he just look. It's like this is really the talk on the internet today. People are saying that Xi Jinping looked extremely unhealthy. He looked abnormally dark, almost black. His face appeared dull, heavy, and unhealthy. Now, normally, the CCP, the regime never allows something like this. At big events, leaders are carefully made up, presented as glowing, vigorous, great power statesmen. This time, Xi Jinping stepped out with a very dark and dull-looking complexion. So Chinese commentators pointed out two possibilities. Either Xi Jinping's health has deteriorated so badly that even makeup couldn't cover it, or his makeup team deliberately left him untreated, letting the world see his decline. And the timing is striking because just a few days ago, he was in Tibet, and his complexion in Tibet wasn't as bad. So in a matter of days, his face turned visibly, severely dark. And he didn't stay. Sometimes when you stay in places like Tibet, due to the high altitude, you could look dark because of the exposure to sun. But he only stayed in Tibet for like under 24 hours. So some medical observers suggest that this could point to liver problems or even kidney disease. In any case, it raised new doubts about Xi's health and whether the rumors of his health crisis are really baseless. Okay, so that's all I have. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, his picture. Here we go. Yeah, he does look like he has an awful tan. All right, so that's all I have. I'm trying to give you an update on the parade and also give you some quick analysis on the SCO summit in Tianjin. That's all. All righty, let's see. All right, let me first of all thank people. First of all, thank you for the wait. I mean, I just watched the coverage, the CGTN's coverage of the parade as I was taking notes and doing some slides. I will go back and watch that video again, but it'll be interesting. I'm not a military expert, but I'm sure there are tons of military enthusiasts out there watching, taking a look at the weaponries, the weapons that were on display. So it will be interesting to see what other people comment. All right, let's see. Let me first acknowledge the people who gave me super stickers. Brian Cow. Well, thank you, Brian. Lily's dad. Thank you, Lily's dad. All right. Okay. All right, let's see. Questions? Mark Irvin. Mark Irvin. Thank you, Mark. For global, thank you. India will never trust China since China arms Pakistan, who is Indian enemy number one since India's partition in 1947. They almost went to war 2 months ago and downed Pakistan bombers were Chinese made. Yeah, that's, yeah. So it's, yeah, I agree. All right, let's see. But all the media, all the Western media, we're saying that uh, we're saying that Trump pushed Modi into the arms of um, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. If you look at the media, that's what they're saying. But I disagree with them. I don't think that's the case. All right, Venkat, Vankeg, Lei, China blocked rare earth tunnel boring machines and machinery for manufacturing electronic components. This is why Modi met Xi. Modi is a highly transactional leader and turns to the US only when it serves India's interests. He's found his match. I mean, Donald Trump is the same way. Um, I think Modi and Trump are two strong leaders who took care of their country's interest before anything. So um, I think they will come back. I think they will come back. But I think it is not it's not right to buy Russian oil. I mean, that's my opinion, and make a huge profit out of it. I mean, because India not only buys Russian oil for its own use, it refines it and sells it to Europe and makes a profit. So, and that's how Putin is able to prolong this war. Anyways, so we'll see. We have alpha male versus alpha male. Okay. Um, Here's a question forwarded by Chris. Oh no, it just went by. All right, okay. Anyways, there's some crazy comments here. Someone saying, Lei, may I know if CCP will to collapse? What will happen to those countries like who are under so much influence from current CCP? Several countries seem to sell their soul to CCP through greed. That's a good question. I once asked a friend, not a friend, an acquaintance of mine who understands everything about the harms that CCP causes, and yet he is very pro-Beijing. So I asked him the same question. I said, you live in the United States, you're an American citizen. Why are you so pro-Beijing or pro-CCP? You're smart, you know what this regime is doing. I said, what if CCP one day collapses and all its crimes will be exposed? What are you going to do? Or what if the United States or the US-China relations turn sour and the two countries are at war? What are you going to do? You are an American citizen. And he told me, he said, well, when that happens, when the CCP collapses, I'll just join everyone else to denounce the CCP. And when the United States is at odds with or fights with China, he said, I will, he will make an assessment and pick a side. So I think this is a very common attitude of a lot of those pro-Beijing people. They know very clearly what they're doing, and they're just going to flip-flop. These people have no principle. Everything is a practical matter. They just do what's convenient for them. So when you ask me what are those countries going to do, they're just going to flip-flop. They're going to, join everyone else to denounce the CCP. Yeah, as if their history didn't exist. That's today's people. And you can't blame them because there's a lot of them out there in our life, right? We've seen them. So countries are the same way. Politicians are the same way. Okay, someone asked me, did they announce who's the militia, you're asking the parade marshal? Yes. The parade marshal is a lieutenant general who is the commander of the Air Force within the Central Theater Command. Yeah, because the commander of the Central Theater Command, Wang Qiang, is missing. We don't know, something has happened to him. So technically, he should be the one who serves as the parade marshal, but he's probably sacked. People say that Zhang Youxia is directly commanding the Central Theater himself. The United States the U.S. government has already figured out that Zhang Youxia is the de facto military leader. Didn't the U.S. Defense Secretary Hegseth asked to meet with Zhang Youxia and not Dong Jun, the defense minister, his counterpart? So they have already figured out talking to Dong Jun, talking to the defense minister is useless because the guy has no power. It's just a figurehead. The man who holds real power is Zhang Youxia, but the CCP declined. The CCP is not going to let Zhang Youxia to talk with Hegseth directly. So that's why I think the U.S.-China military talk has stalled. It hasn't happened. Yeah. So I think they know. I think the U.S. government obviously knows. Okay. Okay. All right, here's a question, Lei. What inspired you to start the channel, and where do you hope it goes in the future? Lee Shepherd. What inspired me to start the channel? I'm always passionate about telling the West about China and telling the Chinese about the West, and particularly telling the Western world about China. And I even imagined, having a consulting business one day, before, years ago, to do that. And during the pandemic, we were all locked down at home, and I saw there's a vacuum. There's a need for truthful information about China coming out of China. So I started this. Yeah, that was 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. Where it goes in the future, I don't hope to do this forever. I hope when CCP disintegrates, becomes history, when China becomes a normal country, a democratic country, I don't think I'll be doing this anymore. Maybe I'll continue to do culture programs. Maybe I'll continue to make programs about Chinese culture and Chinese people. I think that's more fascinating than talking about the ugly CCP politics. That's one passion of mine. And the other passion is really telling the Chinese people about the West. Because I feel like the 1 billion or 800 million Chinese, they have been brainwashed to the point that they don't even know their own culture. The Chinese are not welcomed around the world because of their bad behavior. But it's not their fault. Like I said, they are the victims. They don't know what they don't know. So they have this very warped notions or mindset about how to interact with people, how to do things in other parts of the world. And so they carry this CCP mentality everywhere they go. And that's why they're not welcomed. And so there are a lot of issues there. And I want to make Chinese programs to help them, to hold their hands. Yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully that's not too far in the future. All right, let's see. I used to do that. I used to do training on communication training, on cross-cultural communication training for Chinese immigrants, do etiquette training for Chinese immigrants. I used to do that, and I quite enjoy it. And I observe them. I do a lot of observation about their mindset. It's actually not. It has nothing to do with their language skills. It has to do with how they think, how they perceive the outside world and how they interact with the outside world. It's very interesting. Okay. Oh, there's one. Anriba. Thank you. Well, thank you for the super sticker. Well, thank you. I think I'm probably the first channel that covered the parade because I did it as soon 15 minutes after it ended. So I think I'm the first one talking about the parade. All right. That's all. I think, did I reach the bottom? I reached the bottom. All right. That's all for tonight. Thank you very much. Oh, here's a question from D Glass 2008. What did you think of the parade? Does this mean like the final swan song of the CCP? There seems to be a lot of black swan events lately. African miners are giving China the boot. There are a lot of black, you're right, there are a lot of black swan events. This parade is so choreographed. It's armed from tooth to nail. I mean, I mean, the regime spent 36 billion yuan. They vacated the apartment buildings of central Beijing. They sent people to hotels to live there for a couple of days. Did I tell you? I mean, gas supplies were suspended like a few days before, even a week before the parade. People could not cook at home because there's no gas. Because the regime feared, gas being tampered with. So people were forced to eat at government-sponsored canteens or given, boxed food. So, I mean, only a communist country could have that kind of resources to make a parade look perfect. I mean, I took some pictures of, you have these perfectly lined up chorus, young, and then good-looking young men and young women, like same height. They're, I mean, perfectly synchronized. Only a communist country can do that. Only a communist country can turn human beings into like robots and be perfectly in sync. Because if you're a human, I mean, it's hard to be that in sync, and there's no need. Why? Because we're, anyways, but it's still only in a communist country can carry out an event like that. But what does it generate? Just a pageantry, a fake pageantry that doesn't serve anyone purpose. It just makes the CCP leader looks good. It makes the regime looks good, but it's fake superiority. Does that parade really make the PLA stronger than the U.S. military? No. Does that make China more wealthier than the United States or other countries, Japan or South Korea? No. It's just a fake pageantry that serves the regime's vanity at the cost of people's wealth, because you waste so much money on that, right? It's all vanity, fake vanity that does not serve anyone any good. And people have to train, rehearse, just for that 1 hour. It does not achieve anything other than, all the media, can say, oh, how strong China is, but, I don't know. So your question, so yeah. So that's why, when Trump held a military parade on July 4th in DC, the CCP laughed. They're like, oh, they're not anywhere close to our parade, but who cares? The CCP is all about looking good. That's why people say China is a gigantic Hollywood set. Everything looked good on the outside, but it has no substance. It has no strength. It's just fake. It's a Hollywood set, a prop. It's propped up to look good, but it won't stand for very long. And I thought that analogy is perfect to describe China. The so-called economic reforms of the past 3 decades. What has China accomplished? Piles of dust, right? Buildings after buildings are being blown up because the waste, they're just piles of wasted cement and steel. So, yeah. So that's why, but media love that. See, CCP is very good at publicity. They're the master of deceit. They are very good at publicity. They know how to manipulate people's mindset, and they're very savvy with working with media. So that's why there are so many Western media outlets that still fall into CCP's false narratives. Anyways, um, someone asked me, Lei, do you think Mr. Xi is becoming weak? Of course he's becoming weak. He is. I mean, if you look at his parade, compare his parade with 10 years ago, he looked very tired and not very enthusiastic this year. Yeah. Oh, another note. I got so many emails now from my viewers, and if some people, I don't respond to emails with no names. You know, there's some emails are just like symbols, like KT, and then they have no name, no self-introduction, nothing, and I have no idea. And some questions or comments are full of typos, and I don't know what they're asking. So some people keep forwarding their messages to me, wanting me to answer their question, but I don't even understand their questions because of all the typos. So I just want to say that I don't want to be mean, but if you send me an email that you want me to reply, maybe do a spell check at least so that I understand what you're asking. Otherwise, I don't have the time to guess. Yeah, that's all. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll see you on Thursday. Okay. Bye.